Hey everyone, this is Curb, and I bring you another standard match. Once again, we have myself on the right playing Avangarda, and on the left we do have Wilista, which means I get to partake in my favorite commentating hobby, which is criticizing Wilista players. Anyways, I am going to be going first, which is pretty advantageous for me. Avangarda is a deck that does kind of prefer to go first. It just lets you have that much more pressure, as we do see Wilista using the cycle card to obviously just make back the draw that or make back the card we lose off of basically riding up. Looks like we are actually going to be activating the gem card. Normally that's not something that I would do on the first grade 3 turn because you always want to have like 2 gems in hand, although I think we do have another extra one in hand, so it's not obviously the worst play. I would probably do this in like the mirror match where I'm kind of afraid of losing tempo from going second, but in this matchup I don't think it's as necessary. But, you know, to each their own. It's definitely not an incorrect play, but personally I'd probably just pitch the gem card for ride deck if I have too many. I don't really care about it that much. The extra draw is nice, but it did definitely push damage, so it accomplished a lot more than it would have if we had have just like discarded it. But personally, I value the shield a little bit more, so you know, everyone plays differently. But anyways, just going to be riding to the grade 2, adding the Kill Shroud to my hand. Just going to be activating it. Of course, we can't really do anything. I don't really have anything else in my hand to call, so we're just going to be swinging at the Vanguard. Now, if I were the Wilista player, I'd definitely just commit the 15k guard here. Wilista is a deck that doesn't really need much CB at all. It needs like 1 CB on its first grade 3 turn, but outside of that, you really don't need that much more. And the less damage you take, the easier it is for you to tank, especially once you get your engine going, I should say. Swinging into the Vanguard, hitting to a heal, one of those counter heals. I don't know which one it is. Personally, not something I play, but you know, to each their own, to each their meta, as we do see the Wilista grade 2 being ridden upon the grade 3, kind of deciding what we want to put into soul for cost. If it were me, I'd definitely go for that Ophelia, because apparently I hate Ophelia, but honestly, she's not really doing much. Sure, she is a very nice card to have, but at this stage of the game, she's not really doing anything for you, so that's why I tend to usually just like get rid of her as soon as possible. But we do have the Ramona as well as the gem. Looks like we're going to be proccing it and drawing. Was that 1 card? I think we might have accidentally drawn 1 card, because the grade 2 does actually allow you to draw another card, so we should have drawn 2 there. And a little bit of a misplay here as we swing the Ramona first. Personally, I would swing with the Vanguard first, because Ramona is always going to be hitting over a trigger, and we did even get a front trigger there, so that would have been extra spicy because that Ramona would have been at 30k, but at the end it really didn't matter because I did end up getting a heal trigger, so I probably would have committed the 15k cards to the Ramona anyway. But you know, just doing it in that order allowed me to do things that way. So riding into the Avantgarda, I believe I missed on the search because I ended up drawing into the grade 2. I could theoretically call the grade 2 out, but I think that I value the soul a little bit more in this instance, so I'm actually not gonna call it out from the soul, just because I have a lot of things that I want to use that soul for, like the whatever his name is, Cardfight dragon, or I guess I can't use Habitable Zone anymore. But, you know, I'd rather have it than just like a vanilla body. I do have a lot of good cards to be calling from hand. I'm going to be playing the Dusting from hand, and then probably just going to be using the Avantgarda skill to shove it into soul and then just cycle another card. Although, before I do that, I'm going to be calling the Hathaway to draw a card. Going to be using, what's it called? Just explaining Hathaway's skill here. Using the Avantgarda skill to put it into soul and draw a card. Might be a little bit of incorrect timing there. Obviously I can't call the girl until I've actually put the card to soul, so maybe I should have put the card to soul drawn with Avantgarda skill and then called the girl and then called Hathaway, just to kind of deck thin and make it so that I didn't have a chance of drawing into my death winds, or at least one of them, and just leave one of them in deck. But you know, small minor misplays, sometimes they do cost you the match, but in this case I think I am totally fine to just do things this way. I do actually have another copy of the lady in my hand, but it is still very early on, and I don't really want to risk my ladies getting attacked into, which is honestly the only way that Wilista has to get rid of things. But swinging for a 38, pretty threatening attack. Personally, if I were the Wilista player, I'd probably just take this, unless we have a PG, I think you PG this, but at the same time, you know, it's probably better for later in the game. But, you know, if you take this attack right now, you do risk the restand, but it looks like we don't have the PG, so we'd have to probably commit a ton of triggers from hand if we want to block this. Probably not worth it. Like I said, if I'm the Wilista player, I'd probably just take this damage. It doesn't matter the restand. Hopefully my opponent doesn't get a crit. I'd be in a much better situation if we didn't take the damage last turn. We'd be super keen to just take this easily, but you know. So taking it, gonna drive check into nothing and a critical trigger. So pretty unfortunate Wilista player, but we do actually hit into a defensive trigger of our own, meaning that we have a little bit more bulk. But as we use the Avantgarda skill, we do get to counterblast one, discard one. Unfortunately, we kind of missed the timing. Well, actually, we did get the Hathaway. I don't know what I'm talking about. I was going to say we're missing the timing on the Hathaway because we don't get a counter charge, but we totally used Hathaway's skill before, and we did actually get the counter charge. Discarding critical trigger in order to restand the Vanguard. I believe we gave the critical and the power, or the critical to the Vanguard, power to the lady. Now swinging at 28, my opponent does have to kind of guard this attack. Otherwise, you know, things get a lot more dicey when we get to 5. But still, 28 is nothing to sneeze at, as we do kind of have to commit the guard for this. Guarding for 40, which is going to be a 2 to pass. Basically OT since I only have 1 drive check. So we're going to check the check. Habitable zone, not going to be hitting this 30k, even though it is pretty big. That, thanks to that defensive trigger, that is just a 15k guard. So we're probably just going to end up just committing it here and now. Yeah, there we go. 15, very easy guard there. If we haven't taken that first damage, we would be at 2, which is definitely not a bad place to be when you're Wilista. But, you know, I keep saying that for some reason. I guess that's my go-to for this video. I'm kind of stalling for time just because the Wilista player is taking a little bit of time to, you know, read their cards. I think he was just coming back into the game at this point. So, apologies for some of the cuts, for some of the pauses to read cards and such. But anyways, getting it back to Wilista, we are doing the correct timing because we do have the card in the soul. Getting a very nice call off of that top 5, getting an Elvira and an Ophelia. Another reason why I would have just gotten rid of the Ophelia as quickly as possible, because you do have the opportunity to get another one very easily and very quickly. And so we kind of just have another dead card in hand when we could have just, you know, kept, I think we ended up discarding like a trigger or something for Ride Deck, but we do actually have a second Olivia in hand, so we are going to be drawing a total of 3 cards here, hopefully getting a lot of good cards. I was going to say, I know he calls a Yuika here. I was going to say you probably should have called that before you use the Wilista skill, but now that I'm looking at the footage again, I think we did actually draw the Yuika off of the 3 draws, which is kind of unfortunate because you would have liked to actually get that plus 5k there. It's not going to make a huge difference, but we'll see how my opponent chooses to take that. We are going to be seeing a 21k attack at the Vanguard, boosting with the Yuika. Just going to be guarding that, almost using the Yuika skill here, which is incorrect because obviously that Ophelia needs to stay on board, so I'm just going to be taking that back really quickly. That is also one of the reasons why I think I explained on my deck profile, I don't like to boost the first attack, because a lot of times it can also be a Yuika, and the Yuika, obviously you want to use it for the second swing. Like if this were a Gandiva matchup, this would be like a really good board, and you could just use the Yuika to bounce the Ophelia back, and then you'd have a really great ratio with UBDs against Gandiva. Not the greatest if they have Best Harvest, but, you know, so you can't really do anything about Best Harvest. Although, you know, Gandiva players are actually cutting down on Best Harvest now that they got that new Grade 3. But getting back to the game, I suppose, here, I am going to be PGing that Vanguard. These next swings are going to be hitting for 28. I'm just going to go ahead and tank them because, you know, I don't really actually need the damage, but I might as well. Those are awkward numbers. Unless I have a front, it's not really worth committing 2 cards to guard, and I don't think I have a front at this moment. And unfortunately, another thing I don't have is a Persona Ride, so unfortunately, I will not really be getting that great of a turn. I'm not really expecting to do much this turn, as I use the Avantgarda skill to draw a card, and then I think I do. Oh, I finally have a lady, so I'm going to put her in. So normally if I had Persona Road, this would have been a really good turn. Double lady plus Deathwinds plus Hathaway makes for a really good turn. The only thing that could make it better is that Habitable Zone that I do have in my hand. But unfortunately, I did not Persona Ride, meaning I can't use it. But I am going to be using Freiheit in order to search out my Persona Ride. Hopefully my next turn will be a little bit better. You could argue, I think that this is a little bit of a misplay for me, since I knew that this turn was not going to be that powerful without Persona Ride, and I would have to rely on a hit, and I don't think my opponent's really going to let me hit here. I probably should have gone for the Kill Shroud and actually picked off one of the rear guards, probably that Elevira, just to kind of like stem the bleeding. Definitely would have been a much better play in this instance, but I didn't really think about it. I was just kind of I'm too helmet brained on always putting Night Shroud. It's not Night Shroud, it's Death Winds during your turn 4, but we'll see how much damage we can do here. We are swinging for a pretty beefy number. We'll see if my opponent probably should have PG'd this, but they are going to opt to take it, interestingly enough, as I'm going to flip over a critical trigger, pushing another 2 damage, giving the power to the rear guard, and then, of course, the critical to my Vanguard. Since the attack did actually hit, I am able to counterblast 1 and discard a card, restanding the Avangarda, meaning that I'm going to swing for another. Not only am I going to swing for another 2 crit attack, but I'm going to be able to give another 5k to the entire front row. And now my opponent is going to PG this second swing, which I really think they should have just PG'd the first one, as I flip over another critical trigger, meaning that both of these attacks are going to be hitting for, what is that, just 20, 30, 40? Just because of the trigger, and then of course the extra 10k they got from their skills, and the extra 10k that they got from Death Winds, thanks to the fact that I was able to actually attack twice, is going to make these numbers way too big. If my opponent had just PG'd that first swing, they would be in much less trouble here, because you know, it wouldn't be this big, and we wouldn't have to worry about. Basically, you just gave me another 5k to my 2 rear guards by letting the attack hit. But looks like we're going to decide we don't have enough to guard. Looks like we have a bunch of just no shield cards, including that Ophelia that I said you should get rid of. But that's going to be it for the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.